No sensible person wants to spend every waking hour on a single project. Well, most of us are, not everyone is a full-time podcaster. There are some like me, Pete, Woon, Sophia here, but we have brethrens that do it on the side while they run the business, they are an employee. So time is really important because they have other things to focus as well. So with that in mind, we want to offer you some tips based on our experiences. Me as a podcaster and a branding agency owner, Woon as an international podcast agency owner and coach, and Pete as a legendary podcast creator. And he's a coach. He's the people coach with almost 400 episodes. Guys, he's just nonstop creating content. So how can we all manage time? That is the session today that we are going to focus on. Time efficient podcast tips and tricks. The floor is yours. Woon, you can start by sharing based on your experience and based on your knowledge in the podcast world. The floor is yours, my brother.
Hi, hi, Jen. Yeah, so I think this is a it's such a wide question, right? I think for my experience, meeting most podcasters, the there's many phases to your podcasting journey, right? I think for people who are really early in the game, I think that the key challenge is to get started and get launched, right? But then after that, once you are in a rhythm and you have some processes in place, then it's a question of scaling, right? How do you create even more content while supporting your business being able to be financially sustainable in terms of your podcasting, but also not to burn out, right? Because that is also a real thing that people are overstressed because of too much pressure of creating too much content, or having to overpromise your audience. There's always a lot of challenges, but I think it comes down to two things, right? So it's always the team or the technology. So anytime when we have a challenge like that where we're running out of time, um, usually you have some money. Um, Usually when you're running out of money, you don't have time, sometimes you don't have both. But it's either time or the money, and or if you have the money but you don't have the time, right? So you got to be able to balance that equation, and spend it on the 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 sort of team which is really buying other people's time, or the technology which is using automation, using tools, using software, using processes, right? So that's how I think of this. And so you know I guess we can talk about the team. And when I look at a podcast team, uh, the first role you need to have is an editor, right? Because I think as a podcast creator, as a host, you want someone who's able to take care of the editing process, and obviously also the publishing process. Someone who can just keep it simple for you, make the audio clean enough, good enough that it's sensible, and you can sort of hit publish confidently. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect, right? Nothing is 100%, but the main thing is that it's good enough to be published. You can get your message across, and that's kind of the first step, is to sort of get that process in place. Have your sort of support team in around you to help you create that podcast team. And maybe it might be you are doing it because it doesn't take you a lot of time, right? Because you're fairly technically savvy and you can do the editing. You are sort of as fairly experienced when it comes to your content, and sort of speaking into the mic, right? So maybe it's the sort of copywriting that you need help with. So that's kind of summarizing the show notes, doing the transcription, you know, finding the right keywords, the right titles to your episodes. So you might need a copywriter instead. And so those are two fairly key roles. Um, when it comes to building your podcast team around you. And maybe you have a VA who can do both, right? And they might be, you know, they might have the right skills. They might be good at, you know, the social media side, or it could be the publishing side. You might have to train them up, but there are a lot of support and a lot of expertise around, right? So that's kind of the first step to freeing up more of your time. And I think ultimately you have to use tools to and sort of technology to help you scale your podcast. No one creates a podcast without all the amazing tools that we have right now at our fingertips, right? So a lot of the tools have come down in cost, and so it's just a matter of knowing which tools to use and which ones to sort of maybe set aside or maybe invest at some point. And so those are different things that I think different frameworks that can help you uh, be sort of more time efficient with your podcasting journey. Hopefully that helps. I think we can drill down into this in so much more detail, but yeah, these are sort of the bread and butter of what I do to help people get to the next step in terms of your podcast.
Love that, Woon. And yes, I agree. Those are really powerful tips that, as a creator, this is geared more as a creator when you really dig into creating content for your podcast, because again, it's not easy. Yes, it's our passion. We have the intent before anything else, the driving force, but we're also human being. And creating content is not easy. It will really consume time, strength, your talent. You will dry out. So managing time is really important, and I love that your tips that you shared, because it really makes a difference. Let's hear from Pete. Pete, with your experience in almost 400 episodes, and you've ranked on Apple Podcasts, you've got like top hits in your podcast, in Apple Podcasts and other podcast platforms. You're creating content daily, if I'm not mistaken, because you're 7 days creating content non-stop. That's another level. So what are your tips based on your expertise and perspective in time management, being efficient in time in podcasting? The floor is yours, my friend. Pete? Are you on mute? There you
I'm
go.
here. I'm doing two things. I'm listening to, as I'm preparing for the podcast that I'm going to do tomorrow on Will Smith. I'm just doing a bit more background research. So I was actually listening and multitasking at the same time. But what I'll add to the conversation, well, look, first off, I've been working with Woon for a couple of years on my podcast. For me, Woon is my go-to guy. He totally understands and is also really ahead of the curve and can kind of see where this field is going. I've been in the podcast game my podcast is 6 years old, just coming up, nearly 400 episodes. Been number 6 here in the UK, been number 1 in various countries around the world. We just recently changed the name of it. But one thing I have found that has, about time efficiency for me is recording. I mean, Jan, you've been in many of my, and so's Matt and Annalie and Angela and Frank, when I've been recording podcasts live on Clubhouse. But the great thing is I'm not referring to Clubhouse when I'm doing it, but it's brilliant because it gives me that kind of live feel. Like I'm doing this with like Tom Bailu, his podcast, I think they all done, most of them are done with a live studio audience, even though I say a live studio audience, they're on Clubhouse. But I think if you listen to my podcast now, they're not only are we getting more listeners, but they're just more fun. And I bring in clips and I use my podcast machine that's not plugged in at the moment, that Matt Rowden has just bought one. So yeah, look, being time efficient is for me is like using the Clubhouse room that I do to also record something for that then to go live, maybe a few weeks down the line. But tomorrow morning, I'll do a room on Will Smith. I'll record that as a podcast and we'll put it out straight away, because it's not only just about being efficient with your time, it's about then getting the content out on time, especially when something is topical. You've got to be able to what's that word? You've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to maneuver fast if you want to be ahead of the curve. So, yeah,
You
that's me. Thank you, Jan.
you got to be on trend, and that's what you are, Pete. On trend with this one. Anyone should get on the back of it.
Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. We do the same. Well, same and not the same. That's weird. Yeah,
Woon,
because Pete runs.
Woon, can I just ask Pete a question on the back of this subject? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Pete, listen, I just wanted to throw this out there, right? Because it really intrigues me, and I think it's vital for everybody to understand. You're doing a podcast on Will Smith. How much research would you be putting into this to be able to create the podcast that you want to deliver tomorrow?
Well, the irony of it is I'm almost halfway through Will Smith's book, Will, on Audible. So, and there's so much in there already that I already knew. Like when he found out his girlfriend was cheating on him, he went ballistic. He smashed up a whole load of windows. I already knew his background of his dad being really violent. You know, it's like, is it any surprise that he reacted in this way? He is a massive man of, I mean, there's rumors of infidelity in his relationship, but he's a massive, like, you stand up for your woman, you know, no matter what. And if the remark had been about, so I already knew a fair amount, but the thing that really got me was in our team meeting this morning, was in his apology when he says, I am embarrassed and my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. Well, that was it for me, Matt. I said, I've got to do it. So, you know, I'll probably spend like an hour, and that's enough for me to then speak from the heart, but also to be able to back it up with some facts about him. So, yeah, and you know, Matt, I love to give people a different perspective of something so they can kind of make up their own mind, as opposed to maybe just listening to what the news is you know, saying. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Cheers, mate. Thanks.
I think this is, I mean, what you're doing is so amazing because, having timely content like this is not an easy task to do. And I remember last year you did the episode with Cristiano Ronaldo. I think what was the situation? There was I think it was the UEFA, the Euros, I think, and he was in the news a lot because I think he moved a Coca-Cola bottle off the sort of the news room, right? And uh, you are with your and how quick you are when it comes to podcast content, because most of the time podcasters take a long time to sort of script and produce your content, but I think you are taking it to the next level with not just the timeliness of the content, the sort of relevancy of the content, but also I think with Clubhouse as well, what you're doing, not many people are doing what you're doing, which is taking a live show on Clubhouse and putting it onto your podcast. And you've done it so many times, it almost becomes a skill. And so I,
You
I
know,
look at Pete and
because sorry, go on. I'm sorry, Woon.
yeah,
I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt
no,
you.
I think for you the practice of creating that content is probably far more important than. And so for me, that is a really good mindset to have. And maybe you have a different view on that, but that's how I look at it.
Well, it's a play. For me. It's not just about it's newsworthy. It's the fact that I'm really passionate about those subjects. So that Ronaldo moving those bottles of, you know, Ronaldo has what 490 million followers on Instagram, something like that. And him moving a bottle of Coke, I just thought that was amazing, because it's like he's not drinking Coke, and you can't make me. He's like, I just love that and think what an opportunity. Or Shane Warne, who just died a couple of weeks ago. I was a massive fan of him. I knew him, so what an opportunity to be able to, you know, share what I think about that. I've done that with people like Tyson Fury, and when, you know, when things happen, yeah, it's a great honor, isn't it, to be able to, you know, a few years ago this wasn't possible, or maybe 10, 15 years ago this was a difficult thing to do when you've got an audience. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I've actually just set up the Clubhouse room. You can see it, in fact, because this room is in my club as well. So, or our club, I should say. If you click on the greenhouse, you can see tomorrow morning. Stop Lessons in Life from Will Smith. So feel free to come and listen tomorrow. But yeah, thank you, Woon. Back to you.
Jen, do you wanna do you wanna continue the show? I think the conversation's
Sure,
great.
sure, sure. Well, yeah, that's amazing. Since you focus on that, it is in a way a marketing approach. Whenever there's a trending topic that is happening, there's always an opportunity to piggyback on that. It makes hits on YouTube, on TikTok, and any social media platform, but not not everyone can do that if it's connected to your brand. Plus, like what Matt asked, the question is how much time did you invest in preparing and doing research so you can give justice not based on opinion but with factual approach in topics such as this, because your brand is on the line. And Pete here, like what Moon said, he is in the next level of it. He is, I don't know, he's gifted in this kind of approach. It's good if you can really navigate, but for everyone that is aiming to utilize that marketing approach, be very very cautious. I've released a video of this before, that piggybacking on a trending topic may be beneficial for your brand, or it can work against you. So know who you are and what you do as a brand, and then check if it's connected to your vision, your brand message, your podcast message. And if it is connected and you are really ready to jump on that bandwagon, again, spend much time, invest time to make a research so that your take on the subject is not based on opinion. All right? It should always be in solid facts, factual approach, so that both parties involved in that topic can, with full respect and justified. And again, Pete here is amazing in that kind of approach. So congratulations, Pete. I'm excited for that episode. It's connected to my share in how to be efficient in terms of your time in podcasting. My take is prepare. Just prepare. Know how long you're gonna be recording. Know what type of content you'll be producing. When you are doing it, and then after you record, what's the next stage. If you can think 2 steps ahead, my mentor always told me before that if you can think 2 to 3 steps ahead, you can save a lot of time. So that really, that's always in my mind and in my heart whenever we run a podcast. The scanning of guests to be on the show, the date, the how, the why, and then the audio episode on the platform, the content diversification process where we chop it into little parts and we use it as a promotional material, the assets connected to the podcast that you can use for promotional materials. There's a lot that you need to focus on in creating a podcast, and it's time consuming. But if you plan it ahead before you jump, it can really give you an overview of how heavy it is or how long will it take, so you can adjust and you can use time wisely. So that's my take. That's how we run the podcast. That's how we reach 20,000 solid supporters in 29 countries worldwide, because of some basic things like this. It's not rocket science. You just need to prepare, anticipate everything, and if you can, think 2 to 3 steps ahead so you can really, really be efficient in what you do. So, guys, any questions about or any additions? I know you guys are well experienced in podcasting as well, or running the business. Your take on being efficient in podcasting, or you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and go ask a question or share. Anybody?
Yeah, can I just add to that? I mean, I have, I said earlier on, I've been in business for over 30 years, and that wasn't by accident, right? So all the things that I've learned over the years, specifically in making things work, is there is a fundamental principle, and that is make sure you have a strategy and you make sure that strategy is flexible enough that if it's not going to plan, you can make a different plan. You can alter it slightly. Do you know what I mean? But still heading towards the same goal. And away from Clubhouse, partly in Clubhouse, away from Clubhouse. Some people said to me, just get on with it, Matt. Just start a podcast. Just do it. And I'm like, do you know what? That's a bit like saying, well, I want to start a business tomorrow and just going out there and just doing it. I say ignorance is not bliss. I say that my experience pays dividends moving forward. And, going back to what you were saying, make sure you plan and get a couple of steps ahead of yourself. Well, you know, this is all, listen, this is brand new for me. Podcasting's not brand new for the world. So how I adapt is going to be, I'm not going to break rules as such, but I'm going to play the game, right? I'm going to play the game. But I'm telling you now, I have sat here over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks and spent intervals of time in between other things when I find myself sometime, full time especially, putting together modules and content that it's going to get me weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of the game, because the last thing I want to do is to fall behind. No one wants to fall behind. I want to keep continuity. I want to be consistent. That's the name of my game, is consistency and commitment. And if I combine them two together, I should have a long-term plan that's actionable and sustainable moving forward. So, I really want to, just accentuate the importance of being prepared, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're not making it. And if one thing I've heard out of a lot of podcast rooms, because I have sat in quite a few, um, is that there's a statistic. I don't even know what it is. I've not paid too much attention to it. I've kind of made sure I've done the opposite, and that, like in business, when you start up a podcast, the failure rate, or the rate of where people just drop off, is very quick. And so I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be part of that group. I want to be part of the elite group. I want to be part of the peak group. Do you know what I mean? That group that makes it work and applies themselves. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Love
Thanks,
that,
gents.
Matt. Love that. And yes, I totally agree in what you said. And I always tell this to, the people that ask me advice on podcasting and in business, in branding, because they hear this saying that, don't think about it, just do it. I think that was popularized by Gary V. Just do it, just jump, just start, and that's good, but up to a certain degree. I mean, for me, if you have not planned properly, you have not prepared, you have not ready yourself in your mind and in your heart, even if you start, you are already in the failing stage. You already failed. So I rather consume time preparing, thinking of a lot of things, gathering, researching, talking to people, listening, and and really preparing your mind and heart, and then do the jump, so that, like what you've said, you will not fail. I mean, you will not be in that statistics. And I heard Woon talk about that most creators in the podcast world doesn't reach like 6 episodes. So imagine that. They quit, or life gets in the way. But if you really spend time in preparing, you know how to deal with things like that. And yes, there are things that is out of our control, but again, that's where preparation comes into play. You are conditioning your mind how to navigate. The word is strategy. you strategize how to play the game. The battlefield will be always different, but if you plan scenarios, stages, so you can always adapt and innovate. And that's something that we all need to do. And I love that you focus on that, Matt. Again, it's not bad for you to jump and start. Yes, if you have that fire, go. But to complete the formula, guys, invest time in researching, at least talking to people that that are already in that industry. Podcasters. If you want to know more about business, talk to Matt, talk to Pete. If you want to know more about branding, talk to me. If you want to know more about podcasting, talk to Woon. Because people are experience these people are experienced, and they can give you an insight that you have never encountered, and that can really be handy in your journey. So thank you for that, Matt. Love that perspective, straight to the point. Amazing. Anyone, guys, Raj, I'm gonna
I have a
put you on the spot,
I have a
because I know. Oh, sorry. Yes, please continue.
Jen, I have a question.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah,
Let me just give the floor to Raj, and then I'll give you the floor since I mentioned his name. Is that okay, my brother? All right. So Raj, because you are running an international agency also, any tips in time efficiency, time management, not only in podcasting, but in business, because you're dealing with social media, creative content, podcasting. So your take, my friend, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jan. The pro tip that I would give is because I do this quite a lot for my agency is to batch content. So when you say batch content, and what do you mean by that is by creating your content in one go. So, for example, if I'm going to be doing, let's say, Facebook marketing tips, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the platforms I'm going to be posting on, and then I'm going to basically create posts, let's say, on a weekend for those platforms for the week ahead. So it's always good to plan. And I think you've already mentioned it, Jan, is that you got to have a plan. And what I tend to do is I tend to use my calendar. So I have like a calendar schedule. So I'm like, okay, how can what am I going to post when and how? And look at your analytics on social media as well, because analytics is key. Now, for me, my active audience is at 6 p.m. every evening. Sometimes it fluctuates. And then what I tend to do is I only post now anything from 3 to 5 or 6 times a week because I feel that, and that's once a day, because I think sometimes you can overly overwhelm your audience. I know the the norm here is, I'm going to put in inverted commas, is that you got to post anything from, let's say, 3 to 5 times a day. That's a bit too much for some people. Now, if you're doing short form video content, that is possible because there's anything between, let's say, 30 seconds to a minute. But if you're doing content like podcasting, or if you're doing like stuff that I'm doing, like, which takes a lot of research and then creating, I would say post once a day, look at your insights, and then basically post at the time when your audience is most active. But I think planning is key, and I tend to do a lot of batch content in, and that helps me going forward because every time I want to post now, I batch content, I decide what I'm going to post, and then I put it out there for my audience to actually engage with. And if they're happy with what they see, then they can come to me and say, "Hey, Raj, I want to know a little bit more about this. Can you help me grow my business?" Now, um, my client, who I've been working with for the last 3, 4 months now, his page has grown. He's happy, but unfortunately, he won't be renewing his contract because he can't afford it at the moment. So, but he will be coming back to me because he's seen the results, and the results are key. So if you're providing the results, and if you're providing the right amount of content and the right amount of leverage to clients, they will always come back to you. So repeat business is always good, and also getting referrals. So that would be my pro tip. If anybody else has any questions on stage, I'll be quite happy to answer them. I'm going to pass it back to you, Jan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raj, for that pro tip. We have a lot that joined. I will be giving the floor to you guys later to introduce yourself. But let's give the floor to our brother Mobile Laji. Again, sorry if I butchered your name, brother. You have a question? Feel free to ask. Floor is yours.
yeah, Raj. Good to have you here again, Raj. Sorry, I was just want to explain on, can it be used to convey undue case study, that is a brief podcast as a summary of concept in lieu of writing an essay, I just want you to explain better on that.
My friend,
You get
can
that?
you repeat the question again?
Yeah, I was going to say that I didn't really quite understand the question.
Do you want me to repeat myself?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes,
Do you
Mhm.
get
please.
my question? I said, can it be used to convey a duty case study? That is a brief podcast of a summary of content in lieu of writing an essay. I meant the podcast.
I'm
Did
gonna
you
be
get
honest,
that
man.
right?
I didn't get the question. It's either, um, I mean, I'm just being honest, man. So,
So
if
I think
yeah,
Mobalaji, like, are you asking that can you create a podcast out of an article, like a written content? Is that what you're saying? Is that
Yeah,
your
yeah,
question?
yeah. Yes.
I mean,
Um,
no, go on, Wayne. I'll let you answer that.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that, I mean, the answer is obviously yes, but I think I'm not entirely sure what what's the nuances. Yeah, like, is that
for if the article is his, then there's no problem. I mean, if it comes from a team or something, but if it's from another brand that it's copyrighted, you really need, there's like APAs and citations that you need to focus on. That's plagiarism, bro. You might get into trouble. So either, check, because in my agency or an advertisement, there's APA checkers, citations checking, licensures that you need to really check, because those are copyright under different brand, and especially if you will use it and then you are monetizing that, that's gonna be an issue. So again, basic answer to that is make sure that you have the rights to use that content. There are forms that you can use. You can Google it. There are forms that release forms. There you go. There's release forms that you can use, that the author or the creator, the original creator of that article or that content, gives you permission to do so, to use. There are clauses there if they're giving you permission to use it but not monetize it, or the other way around. So there are things that you really need to consider before jumping. I highly advise not to do that until you sort out the license and the parties involved, because your brand is at stake. And most of the platforms that is being utilized nowadays, social media, are against plagiarism. So it's more creator geared to, not to hinder us from creating content, but to help us have a harmonious and healthy content creation. Raj, please, you're flashing.
No, Jan, I was agreeing with you because there could be quite a lot of copyright infringements, and I think because the articles have been written by somebody else, they actually own the rights to that article. So I wouldn't create a podcast around that. But what you could do is maybe do the research around the article, see what it's about, and then have your own opinion on it or have your own interpretation of it. But I wouldn't copy it word for word, because then, as Jan has said, you could get into a lot of trouble because there will be a lot of infringements there, which could affect your brand going forward. I hope that helps.
Is that okay, Mobulaji?
You can actually change up to 40% of the article to what it is you want, and that will kind of defrag the copyright situation as not a direct copy. So
Yes.
that always helps.
Love that, love that. You can always, make your take on the article, your approach. So, but not, just be very wise in using article. You can, well, another option is you can mention them. That's the easiest way to do it. Whenever you use articles, just mention them. Well, until you're being monetized, this could work. You mention them, you cite them, so that they are being acknowledged, and you are, authentic enough to show that you're transparent, that this is not yours. You are using this as a reference, and this is your take on the article. Things like that. But when you monetize it, that no, that comes into the next level because you are creating profit out of something that is not licensed to you. Again, start off with making connection with the author or making connection to the team that produced that article, and then just talk to them, be transparent. If it's very complicated and they're strict about it, there are release forms that you can use. It's always a good thing to be safe rather than sorry, because again, it's not about the content, it's about your brand, which will be on the line. All right. Thank you, Mobulaji. I just want to acknowledge our friends here that joined the stage: Luis, Arastasia, and Tiffany. Luis, please introduce yourself and what you do. The floor is yours, my friend. Luis, are you there, my friend?
Yes, yes, I'm
There
so
you go.
sorry. Good good morning everybody. How kind of you for to bring me up here on stage. Just, I got pinged into this room and I just thought, well, let me come and check it out. And enjoying listening to each of you speak. I know very little on this topic on podcasting, so I wanted to, absorb and learn as much as I can. And Jan, I was looking at your the link above. I'm absolutely going to check it out when I get out of this room. But I had a quick question. I mean, I guess you may have covered it earlier. So feeling terrible if you were to just give me
No,
a quick.
no questions allowed. No questions allowed. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, of course. As long as the question is not math, I'm ready to answer that.
Oh yeah. Well,
Woon and Raj is here.
in a nutshell, I was just wondering if it is there a lot of paperwork, or, I mean, a lot of filling out stuff to start a podcast going on Apple. That was my quick question, and I'll end with that. So this is Louise, and I'm out.
The perfect person to really answer that is Woon, because he is, I've seen his work. He's an international podcast agency owner and coach. We are partners in number of clients, big clients, TEDx speakers like that. And you know, getting getting approved on Apple Podcasts is different compared to Google Podcasts, Spotify, and like the rest of the podcast platform. So Woon, please share us the your experience in getting a podcast approved by Apple Podcast.
Yeah, I mean the technicalities of it is that you need a hosting platform. So when you create a podcast, you need to use a podcast hosting service, which is really a place in the cloud that hosts your audio files and sort of like meta tags of the audio files. And then what happens is you want to what you call submit your podcast to Apple Podcasts, and what happens is Apple Podcasts is kind of like a directory. And so once it's approved, then your podcast would appear on Apple Podcasts and people will be able to search and find your podcast. So that process, I mean, if you know how to do it, might take a couple of hours, but it is a bit, it's a bit fiddly only because of the security, right? So Apple has, they're quite strict in terms of the Apple ID, the setting up the account and things like that. So they have a process that you need to go through, and they sort of check that all the files, the sort of description of your podcast, it meets the criteria that they are looking for. And once it meets that criteria, they sort of automatically approves that. And in the past it takes a lot longer, but nowadays it takes a couple of hours to get approved. And yeah, basically the sort of technical term is that you need to submit the RSS feed to Apple Podcast, and RSS is really just a link, and it's kind of it stands for really simple syndication. And basically what it does is it sort of describes where your podcast is, what's in your podcast, and it pulls out that content from the sort of podcast host. Does that help you?
Thank you so much, Woon. That was awesome. That was awesome. You kind of cut to the chase because I was just like, well, how does one even get started? If one's interested. And I've heard that Apple is pretty tough with their criteria. So I really appreciate you answering me here. Thank you so much. I will be listening in. And this is Louise again. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to have me up here. Thanks so much. Have a blessed day,
You're
everyone.
welcome. You're welcome. We run this room every Tuesday, so if you are on your podcast journey, you're starting out, or even just thinking of what is a podcast, how does it work, we're here to help you on your podcast journey.
Awesome. I believe I joined your club, so I'm sure I'll probably get a notification or something. So we'll take it from here. Thank you guys once again. And hello, Raj. I know we texted each other, so God bless all. This is Louise. I'm out.
Thank you, Louise. Amazing wound. Love that. Another. Wait, wow. This is. I'm reading the caption here. Creative entrepreneur and host of Passion and Potential podcast. Now there you go. We have a podcaster in the stage. Let's all welcome Arastasia. Oh man, I am butchering your name. Please forgive me. English is not my first language. Again, take two. Arastasia Rolane. The
Hey,
floor is
don't
yours.
worry.
Please introduce
Everyone
yourself
does it.
and what you do.
Yeah, everyone messes up my name, so you're not alone. Don't worry. It's Anastasia Rolane, so you
Damn
were
it,
close.
Arastasia. Should have thought that. All right. Okay. Oh, there you go. Please introduce my friend. Please introduce your. Well, you're a podcaster, so give us an overview of what you do and what's your podcast all about. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Okay, so like I said, I am Anastasia. I'm a creative entrepreneur and I am the podcast host of Passion and Potential. I specialize in helping creatives, discover their passions, embrace their passions, and then turn those passions into a reality and create their dream life. So it's self-help based, it's business based, lots of marketing and branding in there. And I launched the podcast about let's see, January of 2021. So it's been a little over a year.
Love that. Thank you, guys, for everyone that joined in the mid of the session. Please type in, comment your podcast name or the link to your podcast in the comment section, lower left side. Or if you are still in the planning stage, at least your dream name for your podcast. Comment it so that we can check it out and we can support you and we can share your content. Next we have, now, wow, all right. We have royalty in our presence. She's wearing like the crown. An executive business coach, corporate strategist. Whoop, whoop. Tiffany, please introduce yourself and what you do. The floor is yours, Your Highness.
You just made my morning. Thank you. I love it, and I think Artasia can relate to this. It's just so amazing to be in the company of like-minded individuals like yourself, Jan. And it's only because of my creator's grace that I go into spaces and places I never thought I would be. I was asked to help with the Debate the News podcast with Grant Cardone, Jonathan Bing, and Jerry Malcolm. And I said, well, I understand media, social marketing. I said, I think I can. I've never been asked to do that before, even though I was creating my own. And so the thing I learned in the whole process was, there's a quick rise to fame, what you were just talking about. And it doesn't matter what your branding is, because everyone knows who Grant Cardone is. But people get bored. At some point they'll get bored about the great slap that went across the internet. That is the Will Smith slap. I was just mortified. I had to find out later because I don't watch a lot of television. But what I can say is I really enjoyed the value that you offered today, because I was wondering something. How is it we could start this podcast so strong, Debate the News? It's debatethenews.com. Build it on a great platform. Get it within 7 days on every single outlet in America and abroad, even in Africa and Australia. And it come out so strong out of the gate. It was like the winning bet. And then it started to drop off. And I'm like, okay, what's happening? Because it's so outside of the realm of my area of expertise. I understand marketing, I understand media, I even understand business. But when it comes to understanding the audience, the listener viewing, that's a whole different realm, because people want to be entertained, educated, and or Um, they want to laugh. They comedy and news are the top two podcasts that are out there on any platform. And how do you keep it interesting? And there's only so much you can talk about in each realm. So you really helped me understand that there has to be a strategy. Now, I'm not the continued content creator of debates and news. I was only there to batch upload the content and get it in front of everyone and make it look pretty. But I really wanted to ensure that my own podcast did not fall into the same um, void. I wanted to make sure that I start out not necessarily as strong, but I want consistent listeners who truly enjoy the content because my background is literature and English, and I have a master's degree. And those, I understand the way we process information, but to keep the attention of, for example, ninth and 10th graders, that was my first introduction into education. I realized that it is my job to keep their attention, not their job to listen. And that's what I told my students. I said, if you get bored, you have my complete permission to do something else. They were absolutely shocked. But I made it my mission to keep their attention. And that taught me a lot about, and teenagers don't have a lot of attention. Then with my own teenagers, when they were teens, I had to keep them engaged as well. But I liken us as listeners to children because we hop around. I will hop around to 5 different podcasts in an hour and it's creating ADHD. So I want to make sure that I'm giving as much value as I can for that 5 minutes that they may listen to my 30-minute show because I realize something that's 2 and 3 hours is too long. And that's what I've expressed to those who want to do those. I said, you can, but you need to separate it because people get bored. They're like, oh, I can't listen to this for 3 hours. That's how we all think. So you really helped me understand some things because it's not just enough to be entertained. The content has to also add value to the lives of others. At least that's how I see it. I could be completely wrong because I'm green in the podcasting space. So I thank you, Jan, for this space. Thank you all for all of your information that you've shared. I've been intently listening. I've spent a lot of time off of Clubhouse in the past week trying to build my brand and what I'm actually doing in the real world to help it meet this world. And you've been extremely helpful. So thank you. And definitely give me all of the opinions that you have because I take it in, I process it, and I actually put it into action. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I will be following your podcast and all the information that you have out there. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Love you, Your Highness. Thank you.
Now, see, I'm going to have to
But yeah,
record that and put it in a ringtone. No, just kidding.
no, but it's true. And I've heard this from Woon whenever we have clients in podcasts, and not only in podcasting, but in my agency as well as in a business. You really need to understand your the term now is your tribe, the people around you, your listeners, the consumer of your content. You really need to understand them because only by understanding them can you create and give value. It doesn't work the other way. You cannot create value first and then give it to the people around you because that's that works before in the age of advertising. Now you call the shots, but now the authority, the power, innovation in the free media. So you need to understand, you need to connect, you reach out, connect, and build relationship, build trust. If you do that, you can have an overview of how they react. What do they need? What do they like? What is something that you can create or give connected to who you are as a brand that can either solve or give a solution to them or really aid them in their journey. That's where creative content in podcasting, in video, in illustration comes into play. So I love what you mentioned. You really need to understand. One thing that you said is, your listeners are, they're teens, so their attention span is very fast. Now that's a very good observation of how you can navigate creating content and navigating your podcast or your brand because of how the people around you react. So there's no point in creating long form content if your consumers are fan of short form content, and there's no reason for you to jump on long form platform content like YouTube because they are more into TikTok. Or if you will do jump on YouTube, utilize shorts, things like that. So it really makes a difference in your podcast journey, in your branding journey, and in your business to understand the people around you. Love that point, Tiffany. Thank you for making that a focus. It's really something, and it can help us in our journey towards success. Thank you, Tiffany. Arastasia, I'm just gonna give
Yeah, let
you.
me,
Sure,
Jan,
sure.
let me say a few things, right? I think the the point that Tiffany you were making around, you helped someone. I didn't actually catch whose podcast it was, but you worked with a big podcast, I think, and you managed to launch it, and the launch was really good, but it sort of tailed off in the end. Um, so what usually happens is that you want to, if you did a successful launch in your podcast, all those skills are super relevant, and you want to use it for your own podcast, obviously. But one thing that you might not know is that when it comes to podcasting, if you have those sort of product launch approach to your podcast, um, it works really well. So if you can create, competitions, if you can create a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz ahead of time, and sort of make a big launch, it does really well. And obviously, it usually tails off because you're sort of almost artificially incentivizing a lot of your listeners, and you have to do it in some ways because podcast is unlike most other social media platforms. Podcast is heavy on content, right? So people got to listen. It's got to be a change in behavior, uh, and you sort of moving people from one platform to another platform, and the sort of friction is quite significant. So the thing that I kind of want to share is really that if you have those sort of product launch approach, that big launch approach, you want to. The trick is to relaunch the podcast at the end of and sort of create seasons in your podcast, and that way you can get more and more people over time to sort of listen to your podcast. And the reason is because of a lot of things, but the way sort of podcast numbers grow, the way the podcast algorithm works, the way sort of people are discovering podcasts, it all comes down to these types of mechanics. And so just in terms of marketing a podcast, I guess the point is that if you know how to launch a podcast, to grow a podcast, it's a relaunch of the podcast, and you'll get another big spike in numbers. Hopefully that helps.
Wow, that did help. My son has uh, almost, he's working on 2 million followers on YouTube, and he has very consistent followers. And every time he relaunches a new series, he gains a 500,000 more. And now this explains why. Now, he could not explain to me why because he's just, he's there to entertain. But I wanted to know why is that kind of content so popular on YouTube because it's visual content, of course. He's Super Xavier on YouTube. And I'm wondering why can't celebrities do the same thing on their podcast? So you've just explained to me that there's also an algorithm in podcasting. We cannot get away from the algorithm. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
That's definitely amazing, Woon. And yes, it's there's think of every platform as a human being. They have their own culture, they have their own character, they have their own habits. So definitely that's the algorithm. So by understanding those platforms, you will get an idea on how to hits on the content, especially like YouTube. Even in YouTube, long form content against shorts, they are two different aspects, but under the same platform. So that's another topic to talk about. But you are in the right room because people like Woon, Matt, Frank, me, and Pete are here to help you in your journey towards success, Tiffany. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I
Aras,
really appreciate
Ar-
you. I'm following all of you. I'll be stalking you. No, I'll just be following you in the room. Thank you.
Anastasia, I'll give you the floor again. As a podcaster, any tip you can share about time management, in creating content, producing content based on your experience? The floor is yours, my friend.
Hey, thank you. So absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD. So time management is absolutely essential for me because I will just be squirrel brain unless I have strict guidelines for myself. So one thing I have learned is number one, consistency is so important. It is key. So what you want to do is, you know, it figure out what you're able to do, what you're able to produce. Look at your hours in your work week and your days, and if and set a boundary for yourself. So for me personally, I want to post 2 podcast episodes every single week. Now, that's kind of a commitment. So I have to understand that if I want to commit to that and have my audience know that she releases them twice a week, every single week, I need to make that accurate time management. And like you were talking about earlier, find ways to utilize that most efficiently. One thing I do is I do actually batch record. And I will tell myself I'll kind of set ahead time. So I do a big brain dump with all my topic ideas. I will create a schedule inside of a spreadsheet that's like Monday, March 28th, I want to release this. And then what I do is on the day of the week, I say, Monday or Wednesday, I want to record. Now, say Monday, I wake up and I am just not feeling chatty. I keep recording, I'm stumbling over my words. Okay, we'll give it a try again later. Otherwise, by Wednesday, I have to batch record. And I will basically line up my overall schedule for the podcast in advance and treat one day as podcast recording. Then the next day is okay, now we're going to work on promoting those episodes and creating the graphics, thinking always ahead so that I'm never at this behind standpoint in everything where I'm now like, oh crap, I have nothing to post. What am I going to do? I'm always kind of staying ahead on top of it.
Love that. Love that. And it's something that sounds simple, but it's very complex, right? So I love that you really focus on that, Aristasia. And it's something that we can really really use in not only in our podcasting journey, but in our brand, in our business. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for sharing your expertise, your questions, and your support. So before we end this session, we have this part where we give everyone the time to promote your social media accounts, any releases, any online events, or physical events that you are or you have. You can promote your business, anything. So we will give you one round, and then everyone can promote so that we can help each other, support each other. All right, let's start with my partner here, business partner and friend, Woontan. Please promote your social media accounts, your course, and any events that you have. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, so I guess I just want to say thank you for all your questions and your time here, because like like this, like the topic of today, right? Time efficient podcast tips. I mean, time is the only thing that we can't get back, and yeah, so I really appreciate everyone's time here. And if you are interested in doing your podcast or taking your podcast to the next level, or if you got any other questions, you can follow me here on Clubhouse. Obviously, come back to this room. We run this room every Tuesday, and yeah, and obviously, if you look at the link above, that is my webinar link. So if you are interested in joining us on our weekly webinar, we usually run our webinars on a Monday, and so yeah, so we got the next webinar on next Monday. And yeah, if you are interested in running your podcast, setting up your podcast, or if you got any questions around podcasting, I run a podcast agency. So for those of you who don't know me, I mean, I think most people know me by now. But if you just joined the room, I basically run a podcast agency. I started my podcast in 2013, started this agency in 2019, and have helped more than 70 podcasters launch their podcast and scale their podcast. And so, yeah, that's kind of about me. I think that's enough about me.
Love that. Love that, Woon. Thank you. Matt, any promotion, social media accounts, or what's happening, my friend? Please promote.
Thanks, Jan. Never enough of Woon, got to say. And what I'd love to shout out about tonight, we are hosting a Zoom at 7:15 with Pete Cohen and the amazing Dr. Bob Rakowski, and we're looking at the Magnificent Seven. This it's a live Zoom. If you come and join us, you can ask questions to Dr. Bob, and you'll be given answers, and you also get to learn the insights about the business that we're in. And I'm pleased to say that I've been in business now with Pete for nearly coming up to a year, and it's been a fantastic journey. But what we're doing is something quite incredible, and it will be something I talk about in my podcast once they're launched, which is in the coming weeks ahead. So I'm really excited about that. But if you want the Zoom link, please reach out to me on the back channels of Clubhouse, or tap on my face and go through to Instagram and message me there, and I'll drop you the link. As it's 7:15 GMT time. Thanks, Jan, Woon. Great room as always. And thanks for the birthday sing along. I loved it. Thank you so much. All the way from the Philippines and Malaysia. Love it. All around
Oh,
the world. I had a
yeah.
worldwide, Netherlands, you name it, man. It was worldwide. How can I ever ask for anything more than that? Thank you so much. You guys are incredible.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Happy birthday
That's what
again.
Clubhouse is for. That's what Clubhouse is for.
Love that. Love that. And yes, Woon is in Malaysia and I'm in the Philippines. We're like 2 hours away. We're brothers, partners, and birthday singers. Annalie, please promote your social media accounts, any releases, any projects. The floor is yours. Annalie, are you finished peeling the mango? Did you
I
move to
finished
a...
the peeling the mango, but I'm always multitasking. I'm always running from one end to the other to get to my little button. Okay, yeah, I have, as I said, I haven't launched my podcast yet. I've just exited my businesses, so I'm kind of in between things. But what I would like to promote is here on Clubhouse, I run a room called Support for Africa. What I do is, it's probably a little bit like a podcast. I interview people who are entrepreneurs or have nonprofit organizations, or people who would be able to help them. So either philanthropists or entrepreneurs or charities operating in Africa, to just basically connect them, nurture relationships, and see if we can make a difference from the ground up, because clearly the African governments are not going to make the difference we need to see. So if you can help, if you're interested, do join us. It's usually on a Sunday night. I think it's 7 p.m. GMT. Do come and join us, support us. And if you can mentor or help or have any kind of service that you could offer, do come and join us. Thank you. Support for Africa.
Thank you, Annalie. Angela, any promotions, social media accounts? The floor is yours. Angela, are you there? All right, we'll get back to you later, my dear. Next, Frank. Frank, any promotions? Your book? Social media accounts? The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, you can go to my link tree and to my bio. You will find everything. And I'm going to promise everybody, I had a little setback by breaking my toes. And my launch, my official launch, was here on Clubhouse with Amazing Pete, as we all know. And the reviews I get from all the amazing people who are already in this room and in every room I met were incredible. So I'm so grateful. But I'm gonna promise you this. Dr. Marina and I, we're gonna on a book tour. The Dream Driver is going on tour, but you have to be a little bit mobile to do that. So it's a little bit delayed, but all the people who already ordered the book by the info at franksunius.com, they will receive. I'm gonna pack them myself because I have nothing else to do at the moment. So I ordered a lot of little boxes and I'm gonna put them in there, and I'm gonna do the work because Amazon, I'm gonna lose the half. So Dr. Marina is showing me that there is another way to do your book, and well, we will see. And it's all a new journey, but with people like you and Woon and in my support team, what can happen? So let's get it on. And I love you all, and thank you for being who you are. You are all amazing.
Yeah. Love you, Frank. Congrats for your book launch and full support. You know that. Next, Mobolaji. Brother, anything you want to promote? Social media accounts, projects, the floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, nothing really special, but I just want to appreciate you all. I really had a great moment with you guys. At least I'm able to know one or two things about podcast, and really appreciate you all. You guys are so wonderful. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to be here. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you. And once again, happy birthday, Mr. Matt.
Thank you, brother. See you next session. You should be with us next session, all right? Thank you, my friend. Next, we have Luis. Luis, any projects, social media accounts, events? The floor is yours.
Wow, I am a little bit blue in this space, and I need to just really get going. But I think the most important thing is I would probably be promoting myself here. Um, just open to collaboration, open to being a moderator, open to being on somebody's podcast. And that's about it for now. So I don't want to take up any more time on your stage. I'm so grateful to you guys for having me up here. And a big hello, Frank. I'm so sorry. Did I hear that you said you broke your hip? Wasn't fully clear on that, but I'm wishing you a speedy recovery. And also, I wanted to say happy birthday, Matt. I was looking at the comments, and it's your birthday today. So many happy returns of the day. And once again, this is Louise, and I'm out. I hope I can get a podcast going here. So, anyway, till then, lots of love, guys. This is Louise.
Nice. Thank you, Luis. It's an amazing opportunity to have you. We are looking forward next session that you will be joining us again. So thank you, Luis. Next is Aristacia. Still struggling with that name. Aristacia, the beautiful Aristacia. Any projects, social media accounts, online events? The floor is yours. Please promote.
Hey guys. All right. So, like I said, I'm Anastasia. My podcast is Passion and Potential Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Arastasia, Arastasia. I know it's complicated. And right now I'm actually offering free 30-minute business training sessions where I help you analyze your goals. I'll give you marketing and branding strategy. You'll have a to-do list. Um, Yep, you can find that on my website, just arastasia.com. And then I use those training sessions also as podcast episodes. So it's nice for you to be able to plug yourself as well. I'll give you an opportunity to talk about yourself, talk about your podcast if you have one, or just link to your business or Instagram. So that's what I've got going on. Like I said, just visit that link and you'll see something to sign up for it, and you can go from there.
Thank you, my dear. Next, we have Your Highness. Tiffany, any projects, social media accounts, releases, please promote. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much for this space. Thank you for having me here on this stage. I really enjoy it myself. Yes, my new project release, which I have finally started working on other people's stuff to work on my stuff. As creatives, you understand that. So I'll be launching CEOs Run the World in the next week, and I've already got content ready to go, but I'm reanalyzing that strategy now that I've heard some wonderful tips on this stage, because I do want to use 15-minute short form content to ensure that I'm giving out the right information, the right messaging. And I just want to do some quick shorts, kind of like my son is in the short video world on YouTube, and I'm learning from him as well. So Thank you all so much. I'll be talking about marketing and social media strategy, but primarily how it impacts you in business and how to position your business for scale. Because during COVID, we saw everyone pivoting. A lot of fintechs took off, and like podcasts, they took off. And then, well, now we have other issues. So I want to make sure that businesses understand that you can plan for success and plan for scale. So that's pretty much all I want to say. Thank you all so much for having me here. You can find me at yceo.com, but that's a new project that I'm building out as well. But right now, my current home is my business. I'm a broker. So, yeah, that's how I make my money and pay my bills. And you can find that at unitedcreditllc.com. And that is it. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Guys, thank you so much. My name is Jan Santos. I'm a branding and identity coach. I'm also the host of the Creative Talk podcast. Please click the link above us. Episode number 75 featuring Sophia V, WWE caster. She just landed a big deal in World Wrestling Entertainment SmackDown as a official caster, a Twitch partner, and a podcaster. Episode 75, guys, how to start a successful podcast. You can help us by supporting us in, consuming our content. If you want, you can leave a review. So that's our latest episode number 75, featuring Sophia V. And please visit our Instagram account, and there you can see all our free value content for everyone about branding, podcasting, and business. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, supporting each other, sharing your insights, and making this session full of love and respect. Thank you, Woon, for always giving us your learning and wisdom. Matt, your love, your expertise, and your support. Thank you, everyone. Angela, Annalie, Frank, Mobulaji, Louise, Casey down there, Kring, Helen, Chi, Donna, Lasikar. Man, I butchered your name, but thank you for being here. Everyone, always remember, have a positive outlook in life, smile, and God bless you.